The Bible sits under his right hand, its leather dry against his palm, almost brittle in the gray morning light of the federal courtroom. Across the room, the defense attorney does not raise his voice. He does not need to. Every question is shaped like a trap, every pause designed to make the witness doubt the ground beneath his own memory. This is where panic becomes dangerous. Not because fear is wrong, but because fear can start editing the truth. A date blurs. A face shifts. One word comes out too fast, and suddenly the mind begins fighting itself in front of strangers. What do you do when the room wants your confusion more than your honesty? This is the test of Fudoshin, not to become cold, not to become fearless, but to stand still enough that panic does not take the oath for you. A key witness does not look powerful from the outside. He sits in a wooden chair that was not built for comfort, facing a room that has already decided how serious this moment is. The judge is elevated. The jury is watching. The court reporter's fingers move with quiet speed. The seal on the wall feels heavier than decoration. Even the air seems trained to punish carelessness. And in front of him stands a defense attorney who understands pressure as a weapon. The attorney does not need to shout. A ruthless question asked softly can do more damage than an insult. It slides into the witness's mind and turns one uncertain detail into a doorway. Are you sure? Is that what you said before? Was it morning, or was it closer to noon? You remember that clearly, but you forgot this? The questions are not only about facts. They are about command. Because when a person feels cornered, the body tries to escape before the mind has finished answering. The throat tightens. The eyes flick toward the prosecutor, then back to the attorney. The witness feels the dry leather of the Bible still lingering in his palm, and that small texture becomes strange now, almost too vivid, while the memory he came to speak about begins to feel far away. That is the cruelty of panic. It does not always erase memory. Sometimes it crowds memory with noise. A sound from the gallery. The scrape of a chair. The attorney taking one slow step closer. The witness hears the word inconsistent, and suddenly he is not just remembering. He is defending himself against the idea that he cannot be trusted. His mind reaches for the exact sequence, the exact wording, the exact minute, and the harder he reaches, the more the memory feels like something wet slipping through his fingers. This is where many people lose their dignity under pressure. Not because they are weak. Not because they are dishonest. But because the nervous system mistakes humiliation for danger, and the ego rushes in to protect the self before the truth can stand on its own feet. The ego says, answer fast. The ego says, do not look unsure. The ego says, fix this before they think you are lying. And under that pressure, a witness can begin doing the very thing that makes him look less steady. He over-explains. He corrects himself too quickly. He fills silence with words that were not asked for. He tries to prove he is calm, which is usually the clearest sign that calm has already left the room. In a federal courtroom, silence can feel like a verdict before anyone has spoken. A pause after a question can feel like failure. The witness starts believing that every gap must be filled, every uncertainty must be covered, every challenge must be defeated. But Fudoshin does not teach him to defeat the attorney. It teaches him not to surrender command of himself to the attorney's rhythm. That is a different kind of strength. Less dramatic. More useful. Fudoshin is often misunderstood as being immovable because nothing gets inside you. But in real life, under fluorescent light, with a microphone near your mouth and a courtroom waiting for your next sentence, immovable does not mean untouched. It means the feeling enters, and you do not hand it the steering wheel. The witness can feel panic and still choose his posture. He can feel memory blur and still refuse to invent certainty. He can feel the attorney pressing on the weakest part of him and still answer only what he knows. This is the discipline of the witness stand, the discipline of not decorating the truth to protect your image. Look at the first micro scene from the outside. The attorney asks, "You told investigators the hallway was empty, correct?" The witness remembers saying something close to that. Or maybe he said he did not see anyone clearly. The courtroom goes quiet in that special way rooms go quiet when everyone senses a crack. The attorney turns a page. The paper makes a dry sound. The witness's thumb rubs once against the edge of the witness box, as if searching for the Bible again, searching for the oath in physical form. A reactive witness tries to outrun the trap. Yes, I mean, it was empty, but there might have been someone, I don't know, I was scared, it was confusing, I'm not trying to change anything. Too many words. Too much pleading. Too much fear trying to repair itself in public. Now look at the same scene with discipline. The witness breathes once through the nose. He lets the question remain a question. He does not treat it like an attack he has to wrestle. He answers with a smaller blade. I said I did not clearly see anyone in the hallway. That sentence may not make the room comfortable. It may not stop the attorney. It may not make the witness feel safe. But it does something more important. It keeps command. The second micro scene happens inside him. Memory confusion and panic do not arrive as a single storm. They arrive as small betrayals. A detail that used to feel obvious suddenly has edges. The order of events shifts. The witness sees the attorney's eyes, then the jury's notebooks, then the judge's still face, and his own mind begins watching itself fail. That self-watching is brutal. He is no longer only remembering the morning in question. He is remembering himself remembering. He is measuring how confident he sounds. He is noticing whether his hands shake. He is wondering whether the jury can see the panic behind his eyes. The courtroom becomes a mirror, and every mirror makes him smaller. This is the exact point where Fudoshin becomes practical. It does not ask him to crush panic. Crushed panic usually returns as pressure in the voice. It asks him to place panic beneath duty. His duty is not to sound impressive. His duty is not to win the exchange. His duty is not to make the attorney respect him. His duty is to stay faithful to what he can truthfully say, and disciplined enough not to fill the unknown with performance. There is honor in saying, I don't remember that part clearly. There is command in saying, I need the question repeated. There is strength in letting a pause exist without apologizing for it. For a person under judgment, these small acts feel almost impossible. The mind wants rescue. The body wants speed. The mouth wants to prove innocence, competence, reliability, everything at once. But the disciplined person does not answer from the wound of being doubted. He answers from the oath. The Bible matters here not as decoration, and not as theater. It was touched at the beginning, before the crossfire began, when the witness raised his hand and agreed that truth mattered more than comfort. Its dry leather was the first physical lesson of the room. Not soft. Not warm. Not flattering. Just there. A plain object under the hand, asking for steadiness before any question tried to take it away. That is what an anchor does. It gives the mind a place to return when the room starts pulling it apart. The third micro scene is the contrast between panic-driven speech and disciplined speech. Panic tries to manage how everyone sees you. Discipline manages the next word. Panic turns the attorney into an enemy. Discipline turns the attorney into a condition. Panic hears every question as an accusation. Discipline hears the exact sentence, waits, and answers that sentence only. This does not mean the witness becomes passive. It means he stops being baited into self-destruction. He does not smirk. He does not argue. He does not match sharpness with sharpness. He does not let one aggressive question pull him into 5 unnecessary explanations. His strength is not in dominating the room. His strength is in refusing to abandon himself while the room tries to shake him loose. That is the deeper confrontation. It is not the witness against the attorney. It is the witness against the part of himself that wants to trade truth for relief. Every human being has that part. It appears in courtrooms, but also in offices, kitchens, classrooms, police stations, family arguments, meetings where your work is criticized, phone calls where your voice starts to tremble. It appears whenever you are put on the spot and your memory, identity, or dignity feels exposed. You want to escape the feeling. You want to sound certain. You want to end the discomfort. But Fudoshin asks for something colder and cleaner than comfort. It asks for command. The witness does not need a perfect mind. He needs a governed one. He does not need to remember every detail with cinematic clarity. He needs the humility to separate what is clear from what is fogged. He does not need to defeat a ruthless attorney. He needs to remain the kind of person whose words still belong to him when pressure is trying to own them. The room may stay tense. The questions may keep coming. The morning may remain gloomy behind the tall windows. But the witness begins to understand the battle. The crossfire is not there to show him whether he feels fear. It is there to show him whether fear gets to speak in his name. Discipline does not begin after you feel calm. It begins in the first second you realize you are about to lose command. For the key witness, that second arrives quietly. The defense attorney asks a question with one date inside it, one phrase from an old statement, and just enough accusation to make the witness feel surrounded. The courtroom is still. The morning light through the tall windows is gray and weak. His mouth is dry. His mind wants to sprint toward an answer before the silence makes him look guilty, confused, or small. But this is where the training begins. Not outside the pressure. Inside it. The first practice is to stop before the first reaction escapes. Not freeze. Not withdraw. Stop. There is a difference. Freezing is panic taking the body hostage. Stopping is command returning to the hand. The witness lets the attorney's question land without immediately chasing it. He keeps his eyes forward. He does not look to the prosecutor for rescue. He does not turn toward the jury to measure their faces. He does not begin talking just to cover the pressure. Inside his mind, he names the storm without making a speech out of it. Confusion. Panic. Need to prove. That is enough. No diagnosis. No drama. Just recognition. A feeling that is named becomes easier to govern. It may still be loud, but it is no longer pretending to be the whole truth. The second practice is to return the body to the room. Panic tries to pull him into every possible consequence at once. What if I say it wrong? What if they think I lied? What if I ruin everything? What if my own memory betrays me? Fudoshin brings the fight back down to contact. His feet are under him. The chair is beneath him. The witness box is steady. And somewhere in the memory of his palm is the dry texture of the Bible's leather. He cannot hold it now, but he can remember the pressure of it under his hand. Not as a religious display. Not as courtroom theater. As an anchor. A plain, dry, unyielding surface that reminded him, before the crossfire began, that his task was not to look flawless. His task was to tell the truth. So he presses his thumb gently against the edge of the witness box. He does not make it visible. He does not turn it into a performance. He gives the body one small place to stand. The mind needs that. Under pressure, the mind cannot always be commanded by thought alone. Sometimes it has to be called back by texture, posture, breath, and weight. The dry leather of the Bible becomes a remembered line between panic and duty. The thumb on the wood becomes the present version of that line. The third practice is to slow the answer until it belongs to him. The attorney wants rhythm control. Fast question. Sharp pause. Narrow eye contact. Another question before the witness has fully recovered from the last one. A disciplined witness does not accept that rhythm automatically. He does not become rude. He does not become combative. He simply refuses to let someone else's tempo decide the quality of his words. He breathes once before answering. Only once. Not a theatrical breath. Not a sigh. A small inhale through the nose, quiet enough that only he knows what it is doing. It gives the mind half a second to separate memory from fear. Then he answers the question that was asked. Not the accusation behind it. Not the imagined opinion of the jury. Not the shame rising in his chest. Just the question. If the question is unclear, he asks for it again. Could you repeat the question? That sentence feels dangerous to a panicked person. It feels like admitting weakness. But in the witness stand, clarity is not weakness. It is discipline. A person who asks for the question again is not running. He is refusing to answer a blur. The fourth practice is to separate what is known from what is fogged. This is the heart of the training. Memory confusion becomes dangerous when the ego tries to hide it. Panic says, be certain. Panic says, cover the gap. Panic says, if you admit uncertainty, they will use it against you. But Fudoshin does not worship certainty. It honors command. The witness learns to divide his answer cleanly. I remember the hallway. I do not remember the exact time. I remember hearing the door close. I cannot say who was standing there. I know what I saw from where I was seated. Each sentence becomes a fence. Not a wall against truth, but a fence against panic spreading everywhere. This is how the battle shrinks. He does not have to solve the whole case from the stand. He does not have to repair every contradiction that the attorney suggests. He does not have to prove his entire character in one answer. He has to do one thing at a time, hear the question, return to the anchor, separate clear memory from fog, speak the cleanest sentence available. That is all. The mind wants a heroic performance. Discipline wants the next honest word. The fifth practice is to let silence remain clean. In a courtroom, silence feels heavy because everyone can hear it. The witness feels it on his skin. The attorney lets it stretch because silence can make uncertainty look like collapse. But silence itself is not the enemy. The panic around silence is the enemy. So the witness trains himself not to decorate the pause. He answers. Then he stops. No extra explanation. No nervous apology. No attempt to soften the attorney's face. The answer stands there by itself, plain and limited. If another question comes, he will meet that one. If the attorney twists the answer, he will return to the wording. If the room grows tense, he will not treat tension as a command. This is a ritual now. Question. Pause. Anchor. Clarify. Answer. Stop. Again. Question. Pause. Anchor. Clarify. Answer. Stop. It sounds simple only to someone who has never been cross-examined by fear. The real training is repetition under heat. The attorney presses on dates. The witness returns to what he knows. The attorney quotes a prior statement. The witness listens for the exact wording. The attorney implies confusion means unreliability. The witness does not argue with the implication. He gives the answer he can stand behind. The dry Bible leather stays in the story, even when it is no longer under his palm. At the beginning, it was oath. In the middle, it becomes anchor. Now, in the pressure of repeated questioning, it becomes ritual, a remembered texture that tells him to return to the plain surface of truth. Not impressive truth. Not polished truth. Not truth made more confident so strangers will feel better about it. Just truth with its edges intact. This is Shugyo inside Fudoshin. Training inside stillness. The witness does not need a mountain, a dojo, or a blade. His training ground is a federal courtroom on a gloomy morning. His opponent is not the attorney. His opponent is the panic that wants to borrow his mouth. And every time he refuses to let panic speak for him, he becomes a little harder to move. Not harder as in cold. Harder as in trustworthy. The kind of person who can say, "I don't remember that clearly," without collapsing. The kind of person who can say, "Yes, that is what I saw," without exaggerating. The kind of person who can be challenged, doubted, watched, and still keep custody of his own words. That is the practice. Not to win the room. To remain intact inside it. The courtroom does not become kind. That is the first honest thing about transformation. The defense attorney does not suddenly soften. The judge does not lean forward with approval. The jury does not smile in a way that tells the witness he has survived. The morning remains gloomy beyond the high windows, and the air inside the federal courtroom still carries that dry, official weight that makes every word feel permanent. Nothing outside him has been rescued. But something inside him has stopped running. The attorney asks another question, this one built like a hallway with no doors. It begins with a fact, bends into an implication, and ends in a tone that suggests the witness has already failed. Earlier, that kind of question would have sent his mind scattering. He would have tried to remember too much at once. He would have searched every face in the room for permission to breathe. He would have felt the old panic rise and rush toward his mouth. But now there is a small space before the answer. Not a dramatic silence. A governed one. His thumb touches the edge of the witness box again. Wood under skin. The memory of dry Bible leather under his palm. The oath at the beginning of the morning. That first touch had felt ceremonial, something he had to do before the real pressure began. Now he understands it differently. The Bible was not only a symbol of truth. It was the first discipline of the room. Place your hand on something plain, feel its texture, and remember that truth is not required to be comfortable. The attorney watches the pause. The witness lets him watch it. This is new. Earlier, silence felt like exposure. Now silence feels like ground. The witness is not hiding in it. He is standing in it long enough to find the clean edge of what he knows. I remember the statement, he says. I do not remember using that exact phrase. The attorney turns a page. You don't remember? The tone is sharpened just enough to invite embarrassment. The witness feels the invitation. He does not accept it. I don't remember the exact phrase, he says. I remember what I saw. There is no performance in it. No attempt to sound heroic. No anger disguised as confidence. His voice is still human. Maybe it even trembles at the edge. But it does not spill. It does not decorate. It does not rush to protect his pride. That is the transformation. Not perfect calm. Command. A person under pressure often imagines that strength will arrive as a feeling. One clean wave of certainty. One sudden inner armor. One moment where the body stops reacting and the mind becomes untouchable. But real steadiness is usually smaller than that. It is the decision not to add a sentence. It is the breath taken before the answer. It is the humility to say, I'm not sure, without letting that humility become collapse. It is the refusal to let a ruthless question turn you into a reckless witness against yourself. The attorney keeps pressing. He returns to the hallway. He returns to the time. He returns to the difference between one statement and another. Each return is meant to make the witness feel trapped in his own memory. But the witness begins to see the pattern now. The attorney is not only testing facts. He is testing ownership. Who owns the witness's words? The attorney, with his rhythm? The panic, with its hunger for escape? The ego, with its fear of looking weak? Or the witness himself? For the first time that morning, the answer begins to settle. The witness does. He owns the pause before he speaks. He owns the limit of his memory. He owns the difference between what he saw, what he assumes, and what he cannot claim. He owns the simple dignity of not making his answer larger than the truth. And because he owns these things, the attorney's pressure no longer controls the whole room inside him. Outside, the crossfire continues. Inside, the battlefield has narrowed. He is no longer trying to survive the entire trial with one perfect answer. He is meeting one question, then the next. He is not reaching into the fog and dragging out certainty just to stop the discomfort. He is letting fog be fog. He is letting clear memory stand separate from it. That separation is a kind of courage most people never applaud. Because it does not look dramatic. It looks like a man sitting upright in a witness chair, answering less than panic wants him to answer. It looks like eyes that stop darting. It looks like hands that no longer search the room for rescue. It looks like a voice that does not become loud just because the question has become sharp. The courtroom begins to feel different, not because it has changed, but because he is no longer giving every object an authority over him. The judge's bench is still high. The jury is still watching. The attorney's shoes still make a controlled sound against the floor. The court reporter is still catching every word. But these details no longer swarm him. They return to their proper size. The room is a room. A question is a question. A pause is a pause. Fear is a feeling. None of them are commanders unless he kneels inside. This is what modern samurai discipline means in a place like this. It is not a fantasy of being untouchable. It is not turning the witness into a statue, or a warrior, or a man without nerves. It is the very ordinary, very difficult act of remaining answerable to your duty when pressure tries to make you answerable to your fear. There is no sword here. There is no battlefield smoke. There is a microphone. A wooden chair. A federal seal. A ruthless attorney. A dry Bible whose leather he can still feel in memory. And a human being learning, under judgment, that his mind can shake without surrendering the truth. At the end of a long exchange, the attorney pauses again. This time, the silence does not swallow him. The witness sits with it. He feels his back against the chair. He feels the morning still pressing against the windows. He remembers the Bible under his hand, not as a rescue, but as a standard. The first time he touched it, he was hoping he could survive the room. Now he understands the deeper demand. He does not need to survive by controlling the room. He needs to remain faithful while the room tries to control him. The attorney asks one final question in that sequence. So your memory is not perfect. The witness does not fight the sentence. He does not take the bait. He does not try to polish himself into something no honest person can be. No, he says. It isn't perfect. Then he looks forward. But I know the difference between what I remember and what I don't. For a moment, there is nothing to add. And that is the point. Fudoshin is not the absence of fear. It is the custody of truth while fear is present. This is what modern samurai discipline means in a place like this. It is not a fantasy of being untouchable. It is not turning the witness into a statue, or a warrior, or a man without nerves. It is the very ordinary, very difficult act of remaining answerable to your duty when pressure tries to make you answerable to your fear. There is no sword here. There is no battlefield smoke. There is a microphone. A wooden chair. A federal seal. A ruthless attorney. A dry Bible whose leather he can still feel in memory. And a human being learning, under judgment, that his mind can shake without surrendering the truth. At the end of a long exchange, the attorney pauses again. This time, the silence does not swallow him. The witness sits with it. He feels his back against the chair. He feels the morning still pressing against the windows. He remembers the Bible under his hand, not as a rescue, but as a standard. The first time he touched it, he was hoping he could survive the room. Now he understands the deeper demand. He does not need to survive by controlling the room. He needs to remain faithful while the room tries to control him. The attorney asks one final question in that sequence. So your memory is not perfect. The witness does not fight the sentence. He does not take the bait. He does not try to polish himself into something no honest person can be. No, he says. It isn't perfect. Then he looks forward. But I know the difference between what I remember and what I don't. For a moment, there is nothing to add. And that is the point. Fudoshin is not the absence of fear. It is the custody of truth while fear is present.